Why do you feel tense even when nothing is wrong? We tend to think this is just how life is, but often it is a result of 4 silent myths your brain learned to keep you safe. The first, if I stay on guard, I will be safe. The second, my value is my results. The third, my value is tied to being useful. And the fourth, that one might change how you see the other 3 myths, and I will reveal it later in this episode. Let's begin with the most basic one. Myth number 1. If I stay on guard, I will be safe. This myth doesn't always show up so clearly. Sometimes it shows up as instinct. When I say myth, I'm not saying a lie. I am saying an invisible rule. A rule that once protected you, but now may be shackling you. Most of these myths weren't chosen consciously. They were absorbed, inspired, sometimes even required, sometimes even rewarded. So if you recognize yourself anywhere, there's nothing to fix, nothing to perform. Just notice. Because the moment you can name the rule starts to loosen. And to be fair, this myth often began as wisdom. At some point in your life, it may have been true. Being on guard did help. Being vigilant did protect you. Being prepared did prevent pain. So if this myth lives in you, I'm not interested in shaming it. But here's the cost. When being on guard becomes your default, you start living in a constant state of readiness. You can be safe and still not feel safe. Even good moments can feel like you're just letting them pass. You can be at dinner and not fully be there. You can be on vacation and still be concerned about things back home. You can be with the people you love and still feel internally caged. You're neither here nor there. And over time, being on guard can become so normal that you call it responsibility. You call it being prepared. You call it being mature, being focused. See, as a child, I used to play various kinds of sports. I loved them. They allowed me to express myself. But as I grew and life took a toll, I withdrew from sports. I withdrew from being around friends. I called it focusing on my studies. And you know what it does? Your energy gets bottled up. You lose your spontaneity. Your focus shifts to protecting what you're working on. And over time, your breathing becomes shallow. Your heartbeat becomes faster most of the day. And eventually, your system forgets what it feels like to be unguarded. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system learned something. And it kept learning it until it became automatic. So you may ask, what do I do? Do I suddenly stop being on guard? That's not realistic. I have a much simpler solution. Simply notice when you're being on guard. When you're letting everyday moments slip past you. Notice when you're saying no or yes when you don't need to. In these moments, let a question linger in your mind, just as a curiosity. What am I protecting right now? When I say yes and when I say no. Sometimes the answer is obvious, but sometimes the answer is not so obvious. Are you saying yes or no to protect your image, your sense of control, your identity? And one more question that can be surprisingly clarifying. Ask yourself, is this moment truly hostile or just uncertain? Even noticing that can create a small gap, a little space between you and the invisible burden you're carrying. That's enough for now, because in the next episode, we will meet the safety part more directly as an inner pattern. Now let's move to the second myth. Myth number 2. My value is my results. This myth is incredibly common in high-achieving lives. And it's tricky because it can look like strength. For many of us, it started early. Since childhood, we were taught to focus on grades, ranks, scores. Over time, we became experts at gaming the system, learning what is necessary to win. And slowly, results stopped being feedback. They became identity. So later, as adults, life becomes a scoreboard. You don't just want to do well. You need the outcome to confirm that you're okay, that you're still sharp at your game. And because results are never permanent, the pressure keeps renewing itself. This myth shows up in thoughts like, I can't afford to slip. If I'm not progressing, I'm falling behind. What have I achieved lately? I should be further ahead by now. And here's the often hidden cost. Even when you succeed, it doesn't always bring lightness. The mind treats success as temporary relief. Then it says, good, now keep going. Good, now prove it again. So you can have a life full of achievements and still feel a background tension that never really leaves. Because your worth is tied to something that's always moving. It happened to me. I once won a prestigious award during my Ph.D. only to tell myself that it was a fluke and that I had to repeat it again to prove that I truly won it. Now I'm not saying results don't matter. They matter in real life. This is not an anti-achievement message. It's a relationship message. The relationship between you and yourself. The myth is not results are important. The myth is my value is my results. Those are different. We don't reframe it by saying stop caring about outcomes. That would be unrealistic. The reframe that we need to do is let results be feedback, not identity. Let your self-respect be tied more to your capacity, the way you show up, learn, refine, than to one number on a scoreboard or where you stand on the podium. Here are two questions you can hold. If the outcome doesn't go my way, what am I afraid it will say about me? And even if the outcome doesn't go my way, what do I get to learn? Not what it will cost, but what it will teach me. This myth is deeply connected to the logical and sometimes transactional nature in us. It is related to the inner feeling that life must be managed, optimized, played correctly. We will explore this more directly in episode number 5. Let's now look at the third myth that carries its own weight. Myth number 3. My value is tied to being useful. This one often looks like goodness, responsibility, caring, helping, showing up. But when this myth is running, you're not just helpful, you're needed. And being needed becomes proof that you matter. So you keep giving. You take on more than is yours. You keep things running. And because you're competent, people come to rely on you. This shows up in all kinds of places. You might be a leader at work, a parent at home, the friend everyone calls, the person who handles it. And being helpful is noble. The downside is when you slowly confuse your value with the impact you create or don't. Because not every day is the same. Not every phase of life is the same. There will be seasons where your impact isn't seen the way it was before. There will be moments where people are ungrateful, where the response you expected doesn't come. And if your worth is tied to being useful, those seasons feel like failure. Sometimes you even become the person everyone says, I don't know what I would do without you. And it sounds like love, but inside it can become a trap. Because if your value is tied to being useful, then saying no feels selfish, doesn't it? You want to rest, but resting feels undeserved. You want your space, but setting boundaries, it feels like you're failing your own people. This myth can also create resentment. Not loud resentment, quiet resentment. The kind you don't want to admit because you're supposed to be generous. But the truth is, when you keep giving from obligation, it becomes a burden. The solution is not stop helping. That's not you. It's can I give while ensuring my own needs are met? Like putting your oxygen mask first before helping others, as they announce on a flight, so you can breathe. Or a simpler question. Ask yourself, am I helping from choice or from fear? Fear of disappointing, fear of conflict, fear of not being needed. Ask yourself when you feel overwhelmed, am I trying to prove my worth by being needed? We'll go deeper into this in episode number 6. Now it is time to reveal the fourth myth, the one that often scares people the most. Myth number 4. If I let go, it all falls apart. And for many of us, another way this myth sounds is, I cannot just let go of my responsibilities. So non-attachment, while being admirable, is impossible for folks like me. This is where many thoughtful, responsible people get stuck. They hear non-attachment and immediately feel resistance. I have a job. I have a family. I have responsibilities. I can't just let go. But underneath that is usually a fear. If I loosen my grip, everything will fall apart. If I slow down, I will lose my edge. So first, let's clarify something. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean not caring. It means something much more gentle. Non-attachment is caring without the gripping. Here's a simple example. Think about a time when you enjoyed the process of, say, baking a cake. Maybe you were doing it with your kids, or you were learning a new sport, and it was such pure fun without the pressure, without the competition. If you think about it, whether you baked a cake or explored a new sport, you were present with your kids, with your friends. You were lost in the moment. You weren't worried about the outcome. And the cake, it came out great. And the sport, it became your new favorite. That's a small taste of non-attachment. Not I don't care, but I care about the process. And I'm not strangling myself internally with what happens next. So the myth isn't that responsibilities exist. They do. The myth is that responsibilities require constant inner tension. That to be responsible, you must stay attached. You must be in control of the result. That this tension is proof you care. The hidden cost is heavy. It makes being on guard feel necessary. And it makes rest feel undeserved, even internally. You start living as if the weight you carry is the tax we pay to be a good human. The solution here is not become non-attached. That can sound like spiritual achievement. The reframe is again simple. Responsibility can be held with determination, not tension. Think about it. You can care without depleting yourself internally. You can aim the bow, release the arrow, and take whatever happens as feedback. Then try again. Because remember, you are determined. We will explore this in depth in episode number 7. What changes when resistance disappears and we let go? But for now, this episode is not about reaching that place. It's about seeing what keeps you from it. Let me ask you a question. Did you notice a common thread that ties all these 4 myths together? If you did not, you can rewind. I will be here. These myths are all trying to answer the same question. How do I stay okay in a world that feels uncertain? And in a very real sense, they're all forms of self-preservation. The guarded part wants safety. The results-driven part wants validation. The useful part wants belonging. The attached part, it wants control. These are different strategies, but they share the same underlying theme. They're all trying to make the self feel safe. The first part is trying to protect the self's existence. The second part is trying to protect the self's accomplishments. The third part is trying to protect the self's identity as a provider to others. The fourth part, it is trying to protect the self from an uncertain future. So, if you recognize any of these myths, please don't resort to any self-criticism. Every single one of us has these in one form or another, to some extent or another. The goal is not to feel shame. The goal is to see them, because what can be seen can be addressed. And that's the beginning of living unburdened. Not by renouncing your life, not by giving up ambition or responsibility, but by changing the relationship you have with the inner roles that run you. In the next episode, we will explore the first pattern more directly and in depth. The part of you that just wants to be safe, not as a personality type, just as a protective strategy that can become too instinctive. For now, there's nothing you need to change. Just notice one thing over the next day or two. Which of these myths shows up most often for you? I have put a quick poll in the description below. Participate in it to see that you're not alone. We all have our own myths, and in this way, we are the same. These myths don't exist in a vacuum. They are the result of invisible inner scripts running in the background. In my upcoming book, The 4 Mindsets Revolution, I identify these as the defender, the negotiator, the giver, and the yogi. Which ones are driving you right now? I have designed a free 5-minute assessment to show you exactly that. It generates a detailed report revealing your strengths, your flexibility, and most importantly, the hidden locks blocking your growth. Click the link in the description below or scan the QR code you're seeing on the screen right now to get your report. And if you find it valuable, share it with 3 friends who need a breakthrough. Thank you for listening and for being here. If you'd like to continue this inquiry, you're welcome to subscribe and return. We'll take it slowly.